Thanks for tuning in again, everybody. We're back with your favorite podcast, Luka's Tigers and Bronze. Oh my.
LukaNation. We have a very, very, very special guest today. And honestly, I was thinking about what introduction should I do for him? And this is what came to mind. If he was a 2K21 player, all of his ratings would be off the charts. This is a guy that's accomplished so much in such a short period of time. I couldn't be more excited for your future. You kind of remind me of the Luka of the hobby, so to speak. Not a lot, but you're only in the first quarter of what I think your career is. Ryan, or you guys probably know him as CardCollector2 on Instagram. He runs a flourishing and prosperous sports card shop. He's a co-host of one of the biggest hobby sports card podcasts in the industry. He has a philanthropic arm. He does so much in such a short period of time. I'm really excited to have you on here, Ryan. Can you just do a quick introduction of who you are, and we'll jump right into it?
Yeah, so I first off appreciate you guys having me. I've been really looking forward to this since Andrew reached out and we started talking about this a couple weeks ago. So I'm really, really excited to be on this and to talk with you guys. But yeah, I started on Instagram in 2013 when I needed a place to post pictures because Photo Bucket didn't have any. They were going away from free, so you had to pay for it. And at the time, I was like, well, hey, Instagram's a great spot. Let's just post pictures on there. One thing led to another, and I was really one of the first people for cards on Instagram. And then in time, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, with the last year, 18 months or so, the hobby kind of took off, and I was just creating content every day, and it just kind of worked out the way it did. So yeah, I bought a card store, my local card shop, in May of 19, and I've run that ever since. And we actually recently just purchased a new building where we're in the process of renovating now, and we'll be moving in probably March of this year. So a lot going on.
You're the first, which is crazy to think, like you're the first person we've had on that owns an LCS. Could you give us a story? Like, how did that happen? Why did you decide to go retail where so many other people our age go Instagram influencer route?
Yeah. So I worked, one of my first jobs ever, I was like 14 or 15, and I've been in this for a while, and I volunteered at a local card store near my house when I was really young on Saturdays. They were all police officers, and they worked Ohio State games. So like one of the officers' wife, I would work with her because like they needed, somebody that had card knowledge because she didn't really have that, but she was kind of like the adult that would like run it. So I would volunteer there, and it ended up closing. And I remember at the time, like, I want to buy this place. Like it was like $5,000. And I'm like, I want to buy this place. And I couldn't do it. And I just remembered that's all I've ever wanted to do was own a card store. I just thought like, I enjoy face-to-face interaction because on Instagram, right, it's just a phone. You just sit here and like, there's not as much face-to-face. I mean, now with things being digital and going live, the possibility is there, but I just wanted the face-to-face interaction. You never know what's going to walk in. So I've always dreamed about owning a card store. And then in May of last year, I got a call from the guy and was like, hey, I'm planning to move. Do you want to buy it? And I didn't really take him too serious in the time on it. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, let me know. And he's like, no, really, I'm going to sell this. And, I called Andy at Indie Card Exchange, who I'm really close with, and Ryan Bannister at RBI Crew, and talked to both of them. And I was like, hey, this opportunity presented itself. And they're like, if this is what you want to do, this is a pretty good opportunity. So ended up closing on it, remodeled it for 5 days, and then opened on May 28th last year or in 2019, and been going since. So
a couple things just for color for the audience. One, here's a kid. I call every guest a kid. I don't care. I call Gary a kid. Here's a kid whose dream was to open up a card store and did it. You guys want to see a guess out there in the LukaNation land what my dream was when I was his age? Because this will just tell you kind of where my business acumen as opposed to his. I wanted to
triple X kind of DVD thing in the back.
Dude, you're much closer than you thought. Because my dream actually did have a little triple X video section in the back because I wanted to own a Blockbuster Video, which now It basically, I might as well own a dinosaur because they're both extinct, right? So, I mean, that's just talk about some funny stuff, but more importantly, color on this. So Andrew and I have known Ryan since before he owned that store, and one of the cool insights that we got, because we were on an Instagram group together, was when he was buying this store, when he was taking it over. We got kind of like the before and after construction pictures posted into one of our Instagram groups. So I felt like we were kind of like along for the ride of this, A to Z transformation of what the store was. And what was really cool about it, Ryan, I got to tell you, is, I have an LCS in my town here. And it's basically like jumping into a time machine and going back to like the 80s, right? Because my guy, it's a little hole in the wall and he's got like dusty shelves and complete sets on the wall and these weird little like card with a picture of the guy in a frame that haven't sold since
like a plaque.
like a plaque. I mean, and he's got like a bunch of posters and a credit card machine on the wall.
No space on the wall anywhere. There's stuff everywhere.
It's small. It's only big enough for like 3 shelves, three showcases, and the shelves are like falling, and like the cards, you can't even see what the cards are. They're all consignments, and what does he care? So it's like it's a card store that has not been brought into the future yet, and I'm sure that the card store you were buying was sort of like that, and it's amazing to see that kind of turnover. One of the things that I was nervous about with an LCS was cards went the way of the internet. And one of the cool things, and maybe you're involved in this now, is, with the internet now, you can have that store as your home base and still do live breaks and do all these things, right? So it's not that your store is limited to just your locale. It's you're able to use that as kind of like storage, a home base, do your breaks, you name it, and still be a global, storefront, which is pretty cool. You have the best of both worlds.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm going to piggyback on that. It's a great point, because I would venture to guess quite a few people from our audience, a majority of our audience comes from small business or is in small business, did in retail at one point in their life. And the word that came to mind is, if you guys are in e-commerce, there's this word called omnipresent, right? The concept of being everywhere, being online, having a retail presence, having TikTok. Right. If someone put you on the spot and said, with COVID, with everything that's happened, I own a retail store, what would you recommend for them, right? You do an amazing job of what I think is being omnipresent. What advice would you have to small business owners in the local card shops and just outside of it too?
That exact point. I am on Twitter and TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and all of these platforms, and it's free. And a lot of it's the same content, right? I go live on Instagram and show my mail day, and I also record the same video on YouTube, and you upload it there. And then I post pictures of that mail day on Twitter. And I have a guy who edits all of my YouTube videos and turns them into a TikTok. And then I post a video on TikTok. Like, I've got customers that come into my store that have said, hey, I found you on TikTok. Yeah. Like TikTok, I would have never guessed in a million years would lead me to, real sales. And that's one thing. It's just all these things have one thing in common. They're free. It don't cost anything at all, right? In today's day and age, like, people find people via word of mouth or on social media. That's where people spend most of their time. And just being out there and being visible and creating content where people can find you, that has helped us tremendously.
So Andrew, let me just do a quick thing here, because I don't think we did it. I mean, you did a great intro for Ryan, and I know he has a huge presence online, but just in case there's somebody listening from LukaNation who this is their first introduction to Ryan, where can they find you?
So yeah, we're on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all under CardCollector2. We're on eBay. We have a Facebook page for the shop. That's most of it.
So CardCollector2, everybody. And here's what's fun. So a little moment of prediction and honesty from me, and then we'll get into the world of Ryan. So prediction. This show has had some significant success. We had Gary Vaynerchuk on. We had Gary V on. We had Adam Lefko from TNT. We've had our friends from Slab Stocks on. We've had a bunch of great guests, and we love every single one of them. We want to bring them all back on.
Rips, who's also
Rips.
Man, I'm gonna ask about what's the deal.
Bro, Namath, Wharf. We'll do all that, right? So we'll get. So, but here's my fun prediction, and this is a big deal because it's Gary V. I'm gonna make a prediction that when the dust settles, I'm gonna give it a month from today, that Ryan's episode passes Gary V and listens. Gary V, of course, is our top listen episode, and I think Ryan's is going to pass him. And that's a prediction. Ryan, give me a month, and I'll come back to you. Beginning of February, sometime around Groundhog's Day, my favorite holiday in the world, just because I get to watch that movie 12 times in a row. I'm gonna message you and I'm gonna say you just passed Gary as a prediction. And here's number 2, and the more important and poignant and little honesty from Cage here for you guys. I looked at Ryan's page many times last year, and I said, I love the kid. I see all the moves he's making, all the things he's doing. He's opening up a store. I mean, he's honest. He's got some great content, and he's all over the place. But he's got 40,000 followers on Instagram. And I'm like, holy cow. Like, this guy's got, I mean, it's not a million. He's not, he's not a celebrity, but his account is cards. It's sports cards. So 2 things were there. Number 1, it was eye-opening to me because when Andrew says, hey, Cage, let's do a podcast. And I say to myself at first, well, what's our audience? Then I look at Ryan's page and I'm like, well, I know there's at least 40,000 people out there who might be listening to us. So that's number 1. Number 2, I watched like your holiday giveaway, your holiday, charity work and all that stuff. And I'm like, wow, this, because he has that 40,000, look at the, amazing things that he's able to do. But I have to say, and again, a moment of honesty, I'm like, wow, how does he get to 40,000 followers? And I want our listeners to pay attention to what you have said here. And it's this. You started in 2013. There's no shortcut, right? So 2000, obviously you've exploded in the last 2 years because the hobby has. But guys, he's been doing this for a long time, doing this 8 years on Instagram. But more importantly, listen to what he just said. It's him. It's him, and it's constant. It's over and over again, him showing up, posting his mail days, putting his cards out there, doing breaks, getting on TikTok, every single day, content, which we've also heard from Gary. So it explains that 40,000. It explains why, and I think you should have 100,000 because literally we have a lot of people on and they're all nonstop. You, no matter what, if I open up Instagram at a different time of day, there's something else on there from you. So I just want to say, it's like pat on the back from me, but guys, the important lesson to learn here, to everybody listening, because what I've learned is a lot of LukaNation are young business people, young entrepreneurs, people who are trying to find their way in whatever walk of life they're in. It's a great thing to see what you've built and how you've built it. And there's no shortcut. It's just you every day showing up and continuing to do your thing. So congrats on 40,000. Good luck making it go to 100,000. And I have to tell you that at first I said to myself, how does he get to 40,000? Now I have to say to myself, I'm surprised it's only 40,000.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Andrew, I don't want to interrupt.
Let me read why I think Ryan got to 40,000. So this is a review from David Johnson. This is a Google review of CardCollector2 sports card shop. I've been collecting for 30 plus years and visited this amazing store today with my family, who has also gotten into the hobby this past. This was 2 months ago. The store was well organized, owner and colleagues knowledgeable, and so nice. This was the best experience, thanks to Ryan, that I've had in a store ever. My kids had an experience that we'll never forget and are smiling hours later. Thank you.
It's awesome. That's awesome stuff. All right, so that's it. That's the only nice things we're going to say about you.
Yep.
John, what kind of a fool makes a prediction for NBA MVP of the Joker? Come on, man.
Yeah, I mean,
come on. You think the Joker is going to win the MVP?
They're going to be top 3 in the West, I think. I mean, it's too easy. I mean, every time it's like chalk. I don't want to pick Giannis. I don't want to pick Luka, and I don't want to pick LeBron. So I'm going to pick somebody outside of that. Jaylen Brown's playing really well for Boston, so I'm not going to give it to Tatum. Kawhi bores me. So yeah,
Kawhi, I like him with the mask on. If he plays with a mask all year, I'm giving mask Kawhi right up there in like hoodie Melo territory. Like I want to make like all NBA awesome team is gonna be like hoodie Melo, mask Kawhi. Like what else can we throw on that team there? I mean, like that'll make a nice all like Halloween team or something. So number 2, I have this theory that Matthew Stafford is clearly a Hall of Fame quarterback.
I agree.
You do? Get out of here.
Yeah, Matthew Stafford, absolutely. His numbers are going to be tremendous.
No way.
Absolutely.
I thought I was the only person in the world who thought Matthew Stafford.
Absolutely, I think he's a Hall of Famer. Yeah,
get out.
I'm dead serious. I think he's all. I mean, he's got to be top 10 in yards, completion percentage. He's got to be way up there.
What if he leaves the Lions? His contract's up. You think to tarnish his reputation? Think he stays there? What do you think?
I mean, I don't think so. Again, I mean, like in the 100+ years of the NFL, I mean, dude's got top 10 in the most major statistical quarterback categories. I think I mean, it's unfortunate, but it reminds me a lot of Marino. Marino didn't do anything in Miami. They never won a Super Bowl. I mean,
he at least got there though.
Yeah, that touche. Yeah, I've considered Stafford a Hall of Fame quarterback.
All right. Well, I mean, I have to tell you, I think that's one of the all-time ridiculous statements in the world. Yeah, but it is what it is, man. I mean, this is if you're real enough Stafford, I mean, like, do you tell people to invest in Stafford, or that's just a statement out there, like the hell with it, like tell people to buy Stafford's cards?
No, he plays in Detroit, right? So like that's not a tough. huge market. But like, do you think Flacco's a Hall of Famer?
No.
Interesting.
No, not at all. I mean, he won a Super Bowl, but
he had one of the greatest statistical runs ever in the playoffs that year when they won the Super Bowl. I mean, that year.
Mark Sanchez's playoff record's great too, but I'm not enshrining him in Canton.
Mark Sanchez's greatest accomplishment was the butt fumble. I mean,
at
least Flacco won a Super Bowl.
Nah, dude. I mean, I think Mark Sanchez he might be tied for a record of most road victories in the playoffs. I mean,
you're from Ohio. Are you close to Canton?
We're about 210, 220.
Have you visited? Is it all what it's hyped up to be?
I've been 10 years ago, and it wasn't great then.
Wow, I've never been to any of the Hall of Fames, dude. That's something I got to do. And I'm in New York, so Cooperstown is like, a hop, skip, and a jump. I've never even been there, which is just a shame, because that's my cup of tea. Like, I would love to see that. I was watching yesterday. I had Ian. If there's a sport movie on, I will have Ian sit down and watch it. We're watching Cobb, the Ty Cobb movie at Georgia Peach, and it's about him being enshrined and how everybody hated him, and he's like, "Oh, the Hall of Fame, look at that!" I'm like, "You want to go?" He's like, "Yeah, of course." So I'm gonna have to make it there eventually, which brings it to another cool thing. Your kids in the hobby. Andrew's read on that. Andrew's, the Google review we just did. That's awesome, man. Because that's like my favorite thing. Because ultimate sustainability depends on the next generation, doing this stuff. And while the father-son breaking a box of Revolution like I do, it's not really, sustaining the hobby. It's the people who are buying flawless cases for $9,000 or whatever they're at now that are really moving the needle. But, ultimately, if my kid does not care about, Trey Young or the next generation of cards, it will fizzle. That's kind of what happens, I mean, it'll become Beanie Babies. Which, Ian doesn't know what it is. So, go ahead.
I think that's so important, right? Like when kids come in, we really try to make sure that, like, I remember going to card stores when I was young, and there were some I loved, and like every time I walked in there, it was just like heaven on earth. And then there were some where it was like they couldn't care less that I was in there. Like I was more of a headache. I asked a bunch of questions. Like I wanted to learn, and they just didn't care. So when kids come in now, I really try to make sure like kids like leave with a lasting experience where like they want to come back. And we have a lot of kids that come in now because of that. I feel like, again, we try to do different things that, like you said, it's $9,000 flawless boxes. There's not a lot of options for kids in the hobby now. Like a kid can't come in and buy a pack of cards with a high probability of a jersey or an autograph card for $25, $30. I mean, it's got to be relatively expensive. So we do like little hot packs in the shop for like $12 where you're guaranteed an auto or a jersey. We try to give kids like a stack of cards when they come in if they're just getting in and they've never been in. Like there's just different things you can do, but those things make a big difference to a kid who's, again, trying to pick up, and you want them to find a hobby. Ideally at B cards, here's if you give them that experience, and I just feel like it can really change a kid's perspective about the hobby.
I do this, and if you're listening, LukaNation, run out. If you're somebody who breaks boxes of cards, you have stuff in your basement, older stuff, whatever it is. If I break boxes of Topps, I'll pull out all the Mets and Yankees base cards. If I break, basketball, I'll pull out the Knicks, the Nets, and LeBron's if they're bases. Although not anymore. Now those go to PSA. Even LeBron base card doesn't matter. But I'll just walk with a stack of 100 or 150 cards into my LCS and say, I'll give these to kids when they come in. But right now, if I were a kid, I wouldn't want to go into my LCS. It's like scary. It's like a horror movie. But it's fun stuff. So I have a question for you, right? So we can go on cards, and then I'll let Andrew, get a word in edgewise here because unfortunately he doesn't get to talk. So So I want to hear like top seller slash surprise seller, and whether it's different in-house, like in the store versus like online breaking and that kind of stuff. So what's like your biggest seller? Baseball, football, basketball slash what product is it? And then, what's a surprise seller? Something that, people come in, they ask for that you're a little surprised about. If there is a product, like you're like, wow, people really seem to be asking for that a lot.
That's a good question. So consistency, like our best seller is football wax, like just unopened boxes of football cards. That's our bread and butter for sure. When basketball was,
or just are you all time?
Would you say?
In the last few months specifically, or since you
all time since I've opened football product, unopened football boxes are for sure our bread and butter. Again, we're 2 hours from the Browns, 2 hours from the Bengals, and Ohio State's 14 minutes from my shop. So it's a lot of football.
minutes.
Yeah, when basketball was hot in the heart of basketball season last year with Zion, we definitely went through some basketball for sure.
Think of what it's gonna be like next year with Fields.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence and Fields.
It's gonna be crazy for you guys.
yeah, it'll be crazy next year. But yeah, in terms of like players, like it's mostly when someone comes in, it's do you have LeBron, Luka, or Zion? That's typically who most people ask for. We'll get the occasional Baker Mayfield or your great Buckeye from the last 10 years, Zeke, Michael Thomas, guys like that. But in terms of surprise seller, I think the one thing I was surprised with early on was how many hockey buyers I had. There was a lot of people, but we saw a lot of hockey, like the $100 to $200 hockey boxes. We saw a lot of that stuff. That surprised me early on. Trying to think what else might be a seller.
How about like lower end basketball? Like I could tell you that my guy in my local place, he tells me hoops, revolution, those kind of things, because people want to buy basketball, but they don't want to spend $1,000 on a box. That's what he's always telling me. He's like, you can't keep it stocked.
I can't keep retail stocked.
Yeah, that's the same. Yep.
Yeah, it's just because you come in and like hoops premium hobbies, 400 a box, 410 a box, and you can buy an Illusion basketball mega for $100, I think is what they do, or a mosaic cello for $60. It's just your shot at something is you can still pull cool cards in those, and it's just a fraction of the cost. Just the entry point so much lower. So yeah, it's just with Flawless basketball being $10,000 a case and Prism basketball being $4,400, $4,500 a box. Those options are just so much more realistic for so many so many consumers.
So I mean, a great piggyback question on that. Does it scare you, those prices? I mean, you get in because you're a store. You get in Prism basketball. So Prism basketball will come out March 3rd, I think is release day, right? I know you'll pay what you pay for Panini. It's still going to be more than it's been years past, but you're going to have to try to mark it up, obviously, and sell it to your people. I mean, you're a business, and it's going to be a $5,000 box or a $4,000 box, whatever it is for this year's basketball. It might be a little less because it doesn't have the draft classes, whatever it may be, right? Does that? I mean, are you nervous about like whether or not that's going to sell, or it's just it doesn't make a difference? If basketball is there, you can sell it, whether it's in the store or online. That's going to move.
Yeah, there's probably not a product in the foreseeable future I wouldn't take as much as I could get of. We had this conversation the other day in shop. It's just think how many people on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and etc. break. I mean, how many breakers do you think there are? 10,000?
Probably more.
More than that. Conservative, we said 10 grand.
I mean, I had Thanksgiving dinner here, and we had 12 people. Sorry, Governor Cuomo. That's two more than what the law was allowing at the time. But three of my cousins came out of the work and said, "Hey, you know what I'm thinking about doing? I'm going to break online." And I'm like, "Dude, you're 11 years old. Where are you breaking?" And the other one, "You're 87 years old, Uncle Larry. Well, you can't even spell break. Go sit in the corner and play with your hip." But no, seriously, the point, of course, is everybody's breaking. So I think 10,000 might even be light.
So and that's my thing about it is with this, like I use this analogy the other day. This is why I like 1920 basketball as an investment right now. Think how many people are breaking 10,000, right? there's no more basketball product for 1920 coming out other than Eminence on Friday, and that's like 20,000 a box for 10 cards. So for the most part, there's no more basketball. It's
Andrew's
done.
got 2 cases of that coming in, Eminence. It's going straight to his undisclosed location. You're gonna rip some Eminence, right?
I'm thinking Ryan said 1920, like 100 years ago, NBA cards. I'm looking up 1920 NBA products.
No, 2019, 2020, like Zion.
George Mikan Sr. Everybody was looking for George Mikan's dad in that product.
You're not getting any more of it. And with the amount of product people are breaking on a daily basis, with as many breakers are out there, what does a month look like? What does 6 months from now look like? There just can't be that much product available. And again, I mean, Hoops is pre-selling for $375 a box on Blowout at the moment. Breakers run so much of the market at the moment. Like you can get in for a fraction of the cost. It's a cheaper entry point. Like, hey, I can get in a box of Hoops and, get in a 5-box break for $25, $30. Sure, I'll get in. You're in a community, you're meeting with other people. If the breaker's good, it's a fun time. I don't see breaking going away anytime soon. So yeah, for the foreseeable future, assuming there's not absolutely trash classes, it's hard to say that the product won't do well. And even with like in the NBA, like people are like, this class isn't very good. Well, I think there's a lot of guys we don't know about yet because we didn't get March Madness. We didn't really see a lot of these guys play. And, look at the market for second year stuff. Trey or Zion and Jaw, all that second year stuff's going to be there. LeBron's still in the league. He still has cards. Luka, Trey, Giannis, AD, Kawhi, like Curry, like you're still going to want those guys. So yeah, especially with basketball, any basketball product you can get at this point, I'm for sure in on.
So if the pricing of it is not something that scares you, are there anything in the hobby that scares you going forward? Anything that concerns you going forward? I'll throw a couple of examples out there. So we talk about the pricing, whether or not it's sustainable because it keeps going up. I mean, you talk about, I'll just go back to, early last year, when Prism basketball came out. I remember going to my LCS, and this was obviously marked up, but he sold me a case of blasters, retail blasters of Prism basketball, 20 boxes for $400. $20 a blaster, and I don't even know what the hell they go for now. They're probably, a couple $100 just for a blaster. 1920, yeah. Zion and stuff. So, I mean, it's crazy. So, that exponential rise in price, that product that's there, you just think it keeps going. What about PSA? What about returns? I think a lot of what fueled it, so breakers were huge, but a lot of what fueled it was, the grading boom. Everybody was grading. Do we lose people from grading now because they're like, shit, I can't get my cards back for a year? Does that take some of the steam out of the market? I mean, what things like that? Are there anything out there that concerns you about long-term, success here?
Yeah, I mean, somebody brought up a point the other day, and I've mulled it over, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but somebody mentioned, like, it's not a junk wax era, it's a junk slab era. Like, are we grading every single card? I mean, a PSA 10 of almost anything has got to be worth grading. If you told me you could get a PSA 10 on it, you'd grade it. It wouldn't matter what it is. You'd probably grade it, right? The PSA brand is just so prevalent in the hobby. Like a LeBron Mosaic 10 from this year's $75. What's a base cost? $4, $5? But long-term, is that like, are people still buying LeBron Mosaic 10s? I'm not sure. I love grading cards. I grade a ton of stuff. It's hard not to now, but yeah, somebody brought that up, and that was an interesting point. The returns thing.
I think that's really astute, though. If you think about it, like even the Steph Curry inserts from this year's Optic, right? Like it was like the splash shooters. I can't remember the name.
Splash.
The kind of cool looking ones, which actually grade super well because they're of a chrome surface. You could get that card for like $2-3, and that was $100 cards at points in a PSA 10 slab, which is crazy. That's not a card that you could collect. That's a great point, Ryan.
Yeah. So people, like I said, somebody mentioned that, and that made me think. The return thing definitely is something I think a lot about. It's just
return time or returning of cards that get
returning
purchased.
Of cards.
Yeah.
It's like, I saw somebody compare it the other day to like the stock market. Like if you buy Apple stock or Tesla stock and Tesla stock goes down, you don't just get to say, yeah, my son bought this, oops, and just return it. Like that to me, like like that has to change. And but honestly, I feel like that's why we have as much luck buying as we do and selling as we do. Like you get to come in, you get to see what it is, you get to, touch the card, look at the card in person. And if you don't want to deal with returns or somebody on there, like that's why I think social media does as well as it does. That's why I think card shops get to buy what they do. It just, you don't have to worry about that. eBay is obviously the biggest marketplace, and the attention there is just, you can't find that elsewhere. But yeah, I worry
So
about
Ryan,
that.
I'm gonna make a statement out there because I love it. You just gave us great. So junk slip.
You've said that quite a few times about you can't return Tesla
Yep.
stock.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I mean, I give eBay a hard time. It's not really eBay. I mean, I know.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's almost unfair that I said it was eBay because somebody posted something about like shill bidding once, and I kind of responded from my own personal account like, you can't. It's not PWCC that they were going after. Why don't you go after the shill bidder? It's the same thing. It's not really eBay. eBay is just a platform. It's people who are returning these cards because somebody had a bad game. That's not eBay's fault. I mean, obviously eBay is the platform it's being done on, but it's people in the hobby who are taking advantage of it. There are a lot of what I'm going to call bad actors in the hobby. But here's my statement for you, I guess, and then you can tell me whether or not you agree, disagree, you name it. I'm an old man, so I think I forgot what I was going to say. No, I'm just kidding. So, we talk about this stuff all the time, right? About like eBay sales. Do you think that's something that's a little scary? Like, that you can buy something right now and return it 30 days later? I mean, what do you think? What are your thoughts about that? Well, not platform specific, but just, I mean, even anybody, even on Instagram, you do goods and services, on PayPal.
Yeah,
somebody.
That's a risk-free loan.
Yep.
Right. I mean, you buy a card, like you could go out right now and buy 5 LaMelo Ball autos for $250 a piece from Prism. They go up in a month. Awesome. You'll keep them. If not, hey man, sorry, this card's got a nick. I'm returning it. Like, it's just like, it just, again, not everybody does it. So much of the hobby doesn't do that, but it just makes it difficult to sell. And it makes you wonder how many of these sales are, like, again, with the shill betting, how many of these sales are actually real. So
I love it. So my piggyback on that, and my old brain fog cleared what I was actually going to ask you. So here you go. We get this question a lot, and I'm going to give my answer to it, and then I want to see whether or not you agree or disagree. And you probably get this question too. The hobby has changed because of COVID, right? It just has. And I'm telling you, I get this question every day from LukaNation, and it's people think that what's fueling the hobby explosion this year is because everybody's stuck home doing nothing, and they have nothing to do but go online, go on eBay, buy their cards, you name it, the whole deal. And that once the world starts opening up again, that's going to be tamped down. And I have a response to that. I say, while that may be the case, and while maybe there's 10% of people out there who got into this hobby solely because they couldn't do anything else, I point people in a different direction, and that is card shows, card stores, the National, these things that we weren't able to do this year. They're going to be not only bigger because the hobby's bigger, but you touched on something as an LCS. Why I loved card shows. And people listen to this, you haven't been to a card show, once the world opens up and allows you to go to them, please go, because you're able to counteract what we're talking about with the eBay returns and the whole deal. Imagine instead of having to gamble on a lot of 10 Darius Garland rookie Prism cards that you want to get in the house and grade the best ones and not grade the others. Imagine going to a show where you walk table to table and find a dealer who has a stack of those cards on his table in his showcase, and you get to pick them up before you own them and have them in your hands and look at them and say, okay, I'll take these 4. I'll take these 8, or I'll take all 10 of those. Now, I used to do that. You know what I mean? We used to all do that. There's such a huge segment of the hobby that have never even experienced that. It's just been online. And I think that actually could be helpful. It's like a cool counterbalance of only buying online. And you're not going to be returning. Obviously, there's no returns for card shows. You're buying in cash when you're there. And hopefully you get to look at the card over. There's no reason for you to say it's defective. It's not as described. So that's like a whole segment of the hobby that people just haven't even seen. And I think it's going to explode. What do you think? You think, when it opens back up, it's, negative, positive, a little bit of both?
Yeah. when we had Gary on Card Talk, that was one thing I asked him, right? Is like, this was a while ago, but what happens when you can go to a sporting game? Like when you can, like you can travel and, you can take a vacation with your whole family and you can, like, there's a lot of things you can't do now. And I asked Gary that. I was like, I think a lot of people got in originally because there was no alternative, right? You're stuck at home, nowhere to go. You're getting, stimulus money. Like you got nothing to spend it on. I mean, again, I'm not saying people didn't have anything to spend it on. There are definitely people that needed the money, but I think some people that were doing okay were like,
Listen,
hey,
you don't need to buy toilet paper when you buy Bol. Either he goes up or you can wipe your ass with it. So I get it, and Bol.
So yeah, I asked Gary that, and because I was definitely a believer that COVID brought a lot of people into the hobby. I still am. I'm definitely a lot more optimistic now sitting here today than I was 5 months ago or 6 months ago when we had that conversation. That these people that the new entrants into the hobby are here to stay, and that when it opens back up, the card market is for sure here to stay. There's just a lot of things I like about the cards, especially versus like we've heard like shoes. I know Gary talks a lot about the shoe resellers or like the daily fantasy. The tangible aspect of cards is really what is appealing to me. You're with shoes, you're getting that with a fraction of the supply. But yeah, I'm really optimistic about when the world opens back up, whenever that may be, that the card market will do well. But I couldn't agree more that when they have a national, whenever it is, it will be huge. I'm worried that if they had it this year, you would have to if they limit attendance, it would be like, you think like boxes or retail sells for a lot over cost. Imagine if you got tickets to the national and they were only letting 10,000 people in. Imagine what those tickets would sell for.
Little scalping action. My theory is, I'm old enough to remember when sports betting was still kind of taboo. And I think sports cards is a culmination of a variety of factors, but I think we're in a huge speculation culture. Like if you look at what people do, they're no longer investing. People speculate. Like look at Tesla's run up this year, comparable to other car companies. People are speculators. Daily fantasy, people are speculating. Cards, people are speculating. Sports betting, people are speculating. Daily fantasy, speculation. I think we have more speculators in the hobby and more US dollars flowing in and feeding that than we've ever had in the history. And I think that's what's feeding the hobby more than anything else.
I agree 100% with that. And I think FOMO's what fuels so much of that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You just don't want to, you want to be the guy that said, hey, when Tesla goes to the moon or goes to Mars or wherever, like I own some of their stock. Like I knew this was coming. It's like, I mean, you've seen the run up recently with Bitcoin, all these different Bitcoins. Like, yeah, with the hobby now, it's like, if you don't own 50 tray Prism PSA 10s, or, are you really collecting? Like, it's so, to me, it's a lot of like FOMO. Like you don't want to miss out on the guy. So we just buy everybody.
In my dad's time, what was cool for him was to go work 9 to 5, save up money and retire. What's cool, I think, with our culture is being like, yeah, I picked Tesla 2 years ago and look at my Robinhood account. Look, I knew Luka was going to be the shit. Here's his Prism PSA 10. I bought it for 60. I'm absolutely with you.
And I think that is cool. I think that's great. I love that about it. I think the big thing is if you picked Luka, my whole argument on a lot of it is if you got in Luka early, like you were buying Prism Silvers, I think that a year ago today, they were $1,000 for 10s. Like you bought 5 of them. You're like, you know what? This guy's going to be really, really good. Okay. Well, when they hit $10,000 for 10s, sell 4 of them, make $36,000 and reinvest that into somebody that's already cemented their legacy. Go buy a Jordan PSA 9 with that money, right? Like that to me, I think what I love the modern day trading and a lot of that kind of stuff, like investing in some or speculating in a lot of these guys. I think that's fun. I enjoy doing it myself. I think the big thing is when you're able to make something, make sure you're taking some of that money and putting it into the guys that aren't going down. Like LeBron tears his ACL. Hopefully that doesn't happen. LeBron's legacy is cemented. Jordan can't do anything else, right? Like,
I agree with you 100%. His legacy as a 40% finals winner is cemented. It's great. It's all
nine in a row, going to be a top 1 or 2 in all major categories by the time he retires.
Yeah. He's basically the Matthew Stafford of the NBA.
Yeah, I mean,
I have a question for you, Ryan, because it's great. I love that advice, and I don't want to lose
I saw you picked up an autographed jersey of LeBron.
We love it. Yeah. Listen, I'm with you. I mean, the audience knows that, one of the glaring holes in my collection is I don't have a Kobe rookie. So I'm going to try to fix that soon because, I make some money on Trey and I gotta buy a Kobe, that's just the way it works. Right. But here's my just to piggyback on it, because there are people listening who just got into this. Your own people who come into your store who will listen to this. You're going to tell them about your appearance on, do you want to call us the LeBron or the Jordan podcast? I don't know which one, but we're one of the two. We'll tell you yours is the other one. Depends on which one you like, sports card podcasts. So you tell people about your appearance here today.
Gary Payton.
Dude, just because you're weird and wear gloves around doesn't make us Gary Payton. So you ready? So here's the
under athletic and just tenacious, just will. Dude, great will.
What about me says undersized? Get another comparison. What's wrong with you? I'm gigantic. So Ryan, here's dude. I'm getting to a point here, poignance, and you're just derailing it. So this is what he does. It's like I got Ian changing the channels on me, and I got Andrew changing the channels on me in the podcast. Here's the question: there are people out there, your customers, our listeners, people in LukaNation, people who might listen to this, tomorrow, the next day, or a month down the road, who are just getting into the hobby, and they found you what will at the time be our most listened to episode, right? And so I need you to talk directly to them. And here's my question. They're coming in and they say, did I miss the boat? Because all of the people that they listen to, you who got into this a while ago, Rips, who has been in it since 2012 and 2013 and was buying Giannis, people who have the cards to trade, even the ones who got in last year. Think of the run-up since last year. The people who were buying Trey and Luka, you could basically throw a dart at a wall and anything you bought was a 3, 4, 5 bagger. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Whether it's sealed wax, I tell people I made so much money on Devontae Graham, but it doesn't matter. I probably would have made more if I would have just bought Kobe, or just bought LeBron. It doesn't take a huge brain to do it, right? So people are coming in now, and this is what they're faced with. And I'm talking directly to the new folks, the new segment, the people we need to keep this going. They hear you say, are we possibly in a junk slab era? Where everything's being graded, right? You can't do the same old flip game that you were doing last year where you grade anything, you do it on a bulk sub, because first of all, there isn't even a bulk sub anymore. You know what I mean? And if you can get something in on a bulk or value sub, you're waiting a year and a half for that stuff to come back, it seems, right? So the PSA flip game is not there. It sort of is with, some group subbers and stuff like that, but it still takes forever to get your cards back. So you can't do that. Wax. The days of going into a store and buying retail, Prism or retail stuff in a Target or a Walmart are done. You have to be bribing a vendor or something like that to get the money. It's got to go out the back door, right? So you can't do that. That little flip's not there. You can't really just open cards yourself because, as you said, a damn box of hoops is going to be $500 when it comes out to, try to get a LaMelo ball card that's worth a couple of bucks.
The classic question statement.
So I ask you, what do you tell these people coming in the hobby? What is a strategy for them? What do you say to someone who comes in your store and tells you all that, and you want them to stay in the hobby? You want them to be a participating member, going forward, buying cards from you, and don't tell me buy what you love, and don't tell me Charizard can't tear an ACL, because don't tell me buy the card, not the slab, because these are all T-shirts that have already been made. What do you tell these guys? Because we get that question all the time.
You're talking about like to make money, only from a money perspective.
Well, people don't want to get into a hobby that's going to lose money. But yes, for people who want to, Well, I mean, it's both, right? So, I mean, I do this as a hobby, but I don't want to lose money doing it either. You know what I mean? So it's somebody who's coming in, whether it's a flipper, whether it's somebody who wants to do this as potentially a business, whether it's somebody who wants to do it as a side hustle, somebody who does it as a side hustle and a hobby, whatever. You know, you can take it however you want. How do you not immediately get turned off?
Yeah. I definitely think there are an ample amount of ways to make money currently. I think I disagree with you in a little bit of the, like, PSA is not an option, because I have thousands of cards there and will send in thousands more, even if they're going to sit there for a year. So a lot of my strategy now is, like, if you were coming in now to get in and you like don't know enough about it, you're trying to get your feet wet. There are a lot of people that break or rip boxes or like just have a lot of inventory and want to like purge. So like Facebook sales, Instagram story sales, people that want to sell in bulk just because they're like, hey, I don't want to deal with this headache. A lot of people give up money because they just want to move it all at once. That's what intrigues me a lot. So
where are we finding those guys? Because it used to be me. I used to come into the group and say, hey, I'm going to my basement and I don't want these anymore. I'm selling them for 30% less than what it's on eBay for, right? So where do you find those people?
Social media, right? It's all over Twitter. It's all over Instagram. It's all over Facebook. Like finding something like that. So like my whole theory is buy a lot of 700 that's worth 1,000. Again, I'm just finding this specific lot might be tough, but in my head, what runs through my head is, all right, you got to be able to sell a couple of the cards to get half of your money back, right? Like you've got to be able to get a lot of your funds out of it quickly. It can't be a million quarter cards where it's going to take you a long time to get there, right? It's got to have some $10, $50, $100 cards in it. So sell a couple of the big pieces off, get some of your money back. Assuming it's a 50 card lot, there's got to be 3 or 4 cards in there you could probably grade, right? Even if it's bulk, you could grade those, right? So find the 3 to 4 cards you want to grade. Send those off to grading. Send those to a group submitter. Send those off. They're not coming back anytime soon, like you said, but they're going to be there. Take the rest of it, piece it out, make some trades, right? But theoretically, you get $850 for the slot. You paid $700. You got $850 for it. You send a couple cards off to graded. And then you take $850 and you do the same thing and you buy an $1,100 lot. You do the exact same thing. Or you buy a $500 lot. But my theory is, if you could always take some cards and send them off to grading, and then you can continue, as long as you're not losing money, you're making, let's say 10%, eventually that money compounds. And if you do it once a week for an entire year, you've got more money than you started with. And you have all these cards off at grading. So when those come back later, that's just delayed savings, right? Those are going to come back later when you've made all of this money throughout a year. And now you've got, 10% for 52 weeks. And here comes 15 cards back from grading. And then you add those to your mix, you sell those, and then you have a whole lot more money. You just have to, again, a lot of this is about patience, right? Like don't spend $1 million grading these, LaMelo Hoops base rookies that you want back immediately. Send them off. They'll come back later, right? I'm not send quarter cards that are worth $15 as 10s, but find something that has potential, send those off. Make your money on what you can now, even if it's small margins, because when those come back, that's just going to be a nice boost to what you've got. So to me, that's a lot of what I'm looking at is sending stuff off to grading, knowing it's not going to be quick, but when it does come back, as long as you're playing smart throughout it, just keep flipping stuff and you'll eventually get there.
By the way, guys, this is why I think this should be the most listened to episode. That might be the most valuable 5 minutes of the episode and maybe the most valuable 5 minutes that we've given in the last couple of weeks. It's a great strategy. It's something anyone can do, but I'm going to layer something on what Ryan did because you guys don't realize this. Ryan he's a workaholic. I mean, he doesn't sleep. I mean, he literally, this is his life, is his business, right? But what he just told you was, if you're coming into it to get rich quick, that's the wrong way to do it. You can still make money in it. It's not going to be fast and it's not going to be immediate. But what it's going to take is, 1, a little patience, and 2, a little bit of sweat, right? There's a little sweat equity in there, right? Because the backstory of what you just did is, 1, there's a little bit of time on Facebook, Instagram, finding that right lot, a little bit of research when you see a lot, or to know what lot you're looking for, going on eBay, checking 130 point, checking, what other resources are out there, go on StarStock, and see what things are selling for and what you can move part of that lot for when you break it up, right? So there's some background work, some due diligence that has to be done there. Then the buying of it. the picking out and looking at which cards you're going to send in to grade it, the time it takes to send that to a group subber, and then that part of it's gone, then the time it takes to sell off the other pieces to get your money back and or make profit, the eBay, the wherever else you're selling it, the logistics, the postage, the whole 9 yards. So it's not a, I'm going to find something that's $100 and I'm immediately going to turn around and sell it for 120 and do that 50 times. There's some work that goes into it, but there is a strategy there that's very sound that you can compound. And as long as you're willing to put in a little time, a little bit of work, there's money still to be made in the hobby.
As what Ryan just described is exactly how I started 1 year ago today. And I'll give you 2 examples. So first was with Zion Prism cards, right? Oftentimes people sell a Prism card with an emergent insert right next to it. And they'll sell it for the exact same price. That's so subtle, but so important, because really you can break up those 2 cards. You could send the Prism to get graded and sell the emergent for $5 to $10. And now your Zion that I bought last year for $55 becomes a $45 card. That's a big deal. That's a huge deal. Second thing I did was buy Kobe rookie lots. Because there's so many Kobe rookies out there, oftentimes people move them as lots. But if you break those lots up, you actually can make, like Ryan said, 10, 20, 30, upwards of 50%. And what you can also do is send half the lot to get graded, like the Topps rookie or the Fleer Metal. And then the lower end rookies, you could auction off and get some of your money back. So I literally did this exact thing 1 year ago today, and I promise you it works. And I don't know, I wanted to ask you guys, is a year a long time to build up a bankroll? Because in most other industries that I know, it takes much longer than you could do it in sports cards.
And that's important because we talked about this on Card Talk, but it's like now if a card doesn't appreciate 20% in a month, it's a bad investment. Like 4 years ago, like you'd be lucky if it went up 20, 25% in a year. Like that's not normal. So now, like, again, KG said it, it's just like these things take time, right? Like if you come in to try to get rich quick, that's how you get burned. You might get lucky, but like you said, you got to find the lot to buy. If you're not going to go on Facebook and a guy have $1,000 lot and say, hey, this lot's worth $1,000, I'll take $500 for it. Right. And if you do find it, somebody probably beat you to it, right? Like those guys, those aren't out there. You have to be able to, like you said, look into the lot, like price it all out, find the cards to grade, sell it. Like it takes a lot of work to sell a card, ship a card, deal with like, does he want to return it? Like, is the buyer happy? Like there's a lot of work that goes into it. Like we're not saying this is easy or is going to happen overnight. But if you do this every day for, 12, 18 months, 18 months looks a whole lot different than it does right now if you're willing to put in that time and that work. But another thing I would say off of that is you have to be willing to, like, especially early on, like this is something I struggled with so much, especially as like a new card shop, is like I saw like the boxes or the cases that other card stores were keeping, they were sitting on. Right, like they were sitting on 18, 19 Prism basketball cases. And I'm like, ooh, I got one. I'm going to keep mine. It's going to be great long term. But when you're early on and you don't have the bankroll, you've got to be able to keep the emotion out of it. Your job early is to get to those stages, but you don't get to those stages by just buying one thing and sitting on it forever. You'll make a lot more money flipping for 10% every week for 52 weeks than you would have sitting on that case. Like the compounding aspect of it would make you a lot more money than just sitting on it. So keeping the emotion out of it and just no matter what it is, if your goal is to make money for 18 months or for 12 months, flipping every single day will do you a lot more good than getting a LeBron rookie and be like, oh, I'm going to keep this for a year. You'll make a whole lot more money over 18 months or 12 months than whatever that LeBron's going to appreciate in that time.
This is why I historically invest in dividend-paying stocks, by the way, guys. Because if you're just waiting for the appreciation on the asset, that takes a long time, and you only really get it when you sell. Whereas if you have cash flow coming in, you could use that cash flow and do big things with it.
Can I throw something out there too on that? And because there are people out there who are like me. I know I can't be the only one out there, but not only for making money, but for me, the hobby, it's fun. This is my gambling, right? This is my fantasy plays. This is my, my sports, right? So Ryan, I mean, it's a perfect example, right? I could probably make plenty of money if I go out and I find somebody who is going to sell me a Prism box from this year. and I take it, I throw it in my closet, and I hang on to it for a year, especially prison football. Look at that draft class. Look at the quarterbacks that are in there. Next year it's going to be worth more when Herbert's doing better and his team's winning, and Burrow's back and all that stuff. I'm sure it'll appreciate. But what did I get out of that? I get a little bit of appreciation of money, but I would rather take that box that I got and sell it for 10% and then move on to find something else, watch some games, find some rookie that I like, find, Patrick Williams for the Bulls. Looks like he's starting to really play. He's a young guy. I'm just throwing a name out there, right? So, and to me, that's part of the fun of it. I was telling a coworker about this, how I missed out on Tiger Woods cards, that have run up like crazy. And I had literally like hundreds of these cards in my cart one weekend over the summer. And I'm like, I'm not going to pull the trigger. It was like $16,000 worth of cards. Of course, now that's worth like $250,000. Literally, I had one seller had 100 PSA 10s and 80 BGS 10s of the Upper Deck #1 card. And I had all 180 of them in my cart. The total with like tax everything was like $17,000. I added up. It's like 260 grand. It's the value now, like literally less than a year later. And
I meant to Luka's type with some bronze called Cage's Misses.
Cage's Regrets. No, but it's not a miss. So you know what? I did something else with that. I could have held it. And first of all, I would have sold it. I wouldn't have held it till now. So that's the first mistake we all make, right? It's like, it's worth this now. I wouldn't have held the whole. I would have seen it run up double. I would have sold half of them, the whole deal, because that's just me. But you know what? I did something else with that money. I bought something else, and I've probably flipped that money, like Ryan said, 4 or 5 times. And if I followed the trail of that, if I really wanted to spend the time, I'm sure I didn't turn that 16 into $250,000. But I'm sure I've done well with it, and I've had fun. You know what I mean? And I had some money riding on, Kobe White in this game, or in, whether or not I didn't play football, I didn't gamble on it, but whether or not Naheem Hines is going to score 2 touchdowns this week for the Colts, or whatever it may be, and I flip those cards and I have a couple of hundred of them and make a few bucks on each one. So you're right, Ryan. So not only is it that compounding interest, that penny doubling, if you just double those pennies over time, it's worth more than not doing it. But to me, by doing it that way, I'm more invested in the sport. I'm more invested in the hobby. I have kind of like a daily or weekly, activity, right? I mean, that's part of what makes it.
Not just penny doubled every day. Cage, would you take a penny doubled every day for 31 days or $1 million?
A penny doubled.
You're so smart. Ryan, put on your entrepreneurship hat, because I think a lot of our audience are young, aspiring entrepreneurs.
You said put on your what hat?
Entrepreneurship hat, your businessman hat, right? Because we were talking about how to make money.
I thought he said put on the hat that you have that says "I love Lou and cats." No, not that hat. Just put on business entrepreneur hat. Okay, it's a different hat.
Lou is very lovable.
I love Lou. I want to adopt Lou. Tyler, you can keep Tyler, but I want to adopt Lou.
But what's a day in your life look like, right? You run a store. You have a flourishing online business. Now you Card Talk Pod. What's a day in the life look like of Ryan Card Collector 2?
The nice thing is there are no days that are the same. That's what I love. I'm not a fan of monotony. So being able to do something different every day is nice. But yeah, I mean, it's just like I said, I told you guys before we started recording, we have 9 employees now. So there's just always going something on when you have so many employees doing different things. So it's, we do submissions to PSA. So that's a lot of time, and we're about 1,500 cards, 2,000 cards a week. So we do a lot of that. We try to list 50 auctions 5 days a week. So we're about 250 auctions a week. I run, we have a website. I've got to create content for YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and, et cetera. We obviously have the shop. The shop's open, 40 some hours a week. And yeah, just, I mean, it's not as glamorous as it may look, in social media, right? I mean, that's what social media isn't, does sometimes a good job of, is making it look like it's a little bit more glamorous than it actually is. It's a lot of, phone calls and texts and, conversation more than anything. It's just trying to build a brand the right way. That's basically what we're doing.
Speaking of glamorous, right? Here's the glamour. I need 5 minutes on it because, listen, LeBron can talk about Jordan and Jordan can talk about LeBron. Card Talk Pod. I know you guys. I love it. I think it's great. Talk to me about it. How'd that come about? How'd that unholy triumvirate come together? How did all three of you guys decide we are going to go out there and make the second best sports card podcast in the world?
So Tyler, Lou, and I
Look how bad Andrew is. He's like, why are you bringing this up? Dude.
I just don't understand why you don't want to add value to our audience. Like, I want to know how Ryan became an entrepreneur, what he's learned, how he's crushing it.
Listen, he obviously is not. He doesn't love ringing his own bell. So I'm going to get him to do it in a different way. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, he has value to the audience.
I do want to talk about something because
nice.
Before we move,
not allowed. You only talk about what Andrew's allowed to talk about. No, so you talk about whatever you like.
You had mentioned selling too early, and I think that's important because when, like you said, it's just like, hindsight's 2020. You don't know at the time. Like last year, this would have been whatever 18, 19. This would have been like March of 19. First off the line basketball. I got a box for like $750 is what it cost. I hit the Luka at a 20 RPA. I sold it the very next day for $16,500. Very next day. It was the biggest card I've ever hit. Still the biggest card I've ever hit. And I sold it the very next day for $16,500. That card sold in late 2020 for $218,000.
Jesus Christ.
I sold in August of 2018. I sold 3 Mahomes National Treasures, 9.510s, a Mahomes Cracked Ice auto that ended up becoming a PSA 10. I had a Mahomes Contenders Roundup 101 auto. I had a Mahomes Prism Rookie at a 7, and I had about 55 other Mahomes autos. I sold most of them to pay for my wedding. Got $3,000 a piece for the National Treasures gems. Those are about 100 a piece. Cracked Ice PSA 10s, probably north of 100. I think the big thing is you can never look back on those. Like you said, I would have likely sold those the day he threw 6 touchdowns against the Steelers. Like, you probably wouldn't have ever kept them long enough to see them realize today's value.
Yep.
Like, and I think that's important is like, you also can't, if you look back, it fucks with your neck, right? Like, if you sell something, you hope it goes up in value. It's good for the market. You don't want to sell something and watch somebody else get absolutely hosed on something. You would hope it would appreciate. Like, eventually, if something goes down, somebody's going to get stuck, holding the bag per se. But ideally, everything you sell, you would want it to go up. So I think that's key in this, especially when you're early on, is you just can't look back and say, man, I had this and I sold this too early. I sold this too early, because you're going to do that. It's going to happen. It is given that that's going to happen.
We just learned a fact about Ryan that we didn't previously know. Forget about Hollywood celebrities, folks. Ryan had the most expensive wedding ever. Congratulations, Ryan. I hope your wife appreciates it.
Yeah, it wasn't the most expensive ever, but it was.
It sounds like it was something $400,000 for that wedding. Well, especially if you value it in Mahomes today.
Well, the Mahomes are yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. In today's market, it was by far one of the most expensive weddings. Horrible. I mean, it was great. It was.
That's amazing.
Total hypothetical. I'm not married. Total hypothetical.
No.
You go to the missus and you're like, okay, honey, I know we want to spend X on the wedding, but I know that if I put this in sports cards, I'll buy you a bigger wedding in 6 years. What do they say?
It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. She soon would say, I'm leaving you for Tyler.
Yeah. But that was also around the time, like, that was when I'll leave you for Tyler. That's when, that was right around the time I had, that was when my wife and I had the conversation that, like, hey, this is what I want to do. I don't want to get to the time I'm, 50 and be like, hey, is this, I wish I would have taken a chance on, myself and being an entrepreneur in cards. So that was kind of our thing, was like, I paid for the wedding with cards, flipping cards. That's how the wedding got paid for. And it was once she saw that, it became like, oh, hey, this is real. Like, this has real sustainability, real potential long-term. And I didn't go back to my job after we got married out and went on our honeymoon. So that was kind of like the give and take out of it. It was like, I was able to show her that, like, this, like I said, this can be real. And this is real money. Because for the longest time, it was like, hey, this is just kind of a fad. Like, this, you can't really make money at this, get a job, do it on the side. Like I heard that a lot. But the wedding was, yes, I sold those early. Would love to still have them, but it also allowed me to do this full time, and that I wouldn't change that for the world.
Sitting on the other side of the camera, to me, the story of being able to pay for your wedding through sports cards is actually the huge long-term win. If you kind of just like look at your life, being able to tell that story, that's unbelievable, right? People they dream for something like that to happen. So I think that's more impressive than holding any Luka RPA.
There are other people out there listening to this right now who are considering their move next month, to go into this full time, to go into a flip game, whether it's cards, whatever, become an Amazon seller. We have a lot of people who follow us who do that stuff, right? And Ryan, it sounds like, a couple ways to ask this. Number one, it sounds like you had another job. And at some point in time, whether it was because of success here, because of the wedding, whatever it was, you decided this was the way to go. Talk to our people who are listening who might need that nudge, who might need to hear from someone like you who jumped and said, I'm going to do this because this is what I want to do. And I want to wake up and be happy and do something that, this is what I dreamed about doing. And tell them it's all right. But the flip side, tell them how much work goes into it, man.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is I would love everybody to be able to wake up every day and to be able to, do what you love for a living. I wish this for everyone in the world. I love this. But that's the thing is, like I said earlier about Instagram, like it's a lot of work. I gave up a lot of like Friday nights. Like I would go live on Instagram and razz cards on Friday night. Like my wife's like, hey, you want to go get dinner? I'm like, no, gotta razz cards. Like you give up a lot and to do this. It's not just, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Like your income is based on how hard you work. Are you willing to you got to be, Gary talks about it a lot too, and I use it. It's self-aware. Like, are you really going to work as hard as you say you're going to work? If you are, and you're doing a good thing, this is a great opportunity. I love it. And I would love for people to bet on themselves, because I'm so glad I did. As long as, like I said, you can have that conversation with yourself that you're going to work hard and you're going to always put in the work. It can definitely work.
Okay, you got to have one quarterback in their prime to quarterback your team to a Super Bowl: Dan Marino or Matthew Stafford?
Dan Marino.
You can only have a podcast with two people, you and one other person, Lou or Tyler.
Oh goodness!
You don't have to answer. I don't have to answer. I'm going to give you the out on it, but I had to. Come on. Yes, I love you guys. I mean, and just for background for the crew, right? So all of us, the three of us here, and Lou and Tyler, all met. We are all friends. We're all in one group. I mean, that's pretty crazy stuff. We're all in one little Instagram group, which is that's fun stuff. And the shenanigans.
Heroes. Just leave heroes out and slab stock, dude. That little group. You're going to be running the internet on sports card news and information.
Looking back, it's pretty funny how that crew. I mean, there's some pretty fun folks in that little one group. That was, I don't know who put that group together. It was Lou or whatever it is, but that was a pretty cool assortment.
Well, that was when Gary was getting into cards real big.
Yep.
That was when Gary was trying to make connections in cards and trying to get in there into groups, and it just, I mean, I know there's a couple of them. There was a couple of them that formed at that time, but I'm glad I'm in the one I'm in.
If you guys are listening, there's another trio that I think would dominate. It would clear us all out. And it's Alex, Steve, Sportrepreneur, and DJ. That trio, I think, would light it up.
Oh, we'll have them on. We'll put them all together.
Last question, Ryan. Alabama, Ohio State. What do you got? What are your predictions? And do you think Justin Fields is going number one in the draft?
No shot in a million years. If Trevor Lawrence goes pro, anyone will go number one other than Trevor Lawrence. No shot in a million years. No chance. No way ever. No, zero chance. Couldn't be more sure.
You like sunshine?
Yeah, I mean, just
sunshine.
To me, we talked about this on Card Talk this week. It's not as extreme because of what basketball is and the popularity basketball has globally, but in a smaller sense, Trevor Lawrence is Zion, right? He's been watched since 8th grade. He's been recruited. Like his hype is unmatched. He beat Alabama in the national title game as a freshman. Like he is going to be, again, Zion's up here because of what basketball is, but Trevor Lawrence isn't far behind. He will be, I mean, so popular when he comes in. His stuff will sell for a fortune. There are reports coming out that Ohio State's struggling with COVID issues. I've heard a lot of the defensive line could have it. If we don't have a defensive line, I don't like my chances. If we play like we did against Clemson, I love my chances. Certainly, we talked about this with some friends locally. Would you rather? I'm the type of fan. I don't want to go to the national championship and lose. I'd almost rather lose to Clemson than go to the national championship and lose. I hate to lose. Hate to lose. So I just hope it's a good game. I hope it's competitive. If you're going to ask me to put money, I'm going to say 49-42 Ohio State.
Love it. Dwayne Haskins, what's the deal with him? You think he sees time in the NFL next year?
Didn't do himself any favors, man. You're in a bad spot. You're not liked from the start by the coach, right? So you think you just put your head down and you just work and you work and you work and you just bust your ass and you give another team a reason to sign you. And you're not showing much, signs of hope on the field. And then you do the strip club stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you're not giving any team any incentive to sign you.
That's what I tell Andrew all the time, by the way, Ron. I said, listen, not only you're not bringing it here on the podcast, but then when I try to find you, you're at the strip club all the time. I mean, like, it's the same. I basically work with Ryan Haskins.
James Harden got a big Haskins, and he's paying. He's paying for us. So what do we got to do?
It's crazy. It's crazy stuff. Listen, hidden in there, little nugget there is, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy this year and last year's football cards, because what I'm a big believer in is the rising tide lifts all ships, right? And I think that Zion coming out actually was a huge help for Tatum cards and Luka and Trey. And obviously Luka is his own beast, right? But the fact that all that attention was brought into those cards, I think that it really helps lift the pricing on all of the cards, right?
Absolutely.
And if you're right, and I have no reason to doubt you, especially with football being so huge in your store, and that is like the bread and butter of where you are. If this kid Lawrence comes out, and, even if he's on the Jaguars, doesn't matter. Blake Bortles was decent on the Jaguars. You know what I mean? He had a decent run there for a little while, right? Yeah, so exactly, right? So even if he's on the Jaguars, that's going to lift the prices of wax. It's going to lift the prices of new stuff coming out. It's going to lift the prices of the cards. And it's just going to, in turn, lift the prices of the prior year stuff as well. So that's what I'm taking from what Ryan is talking about here. And, it's something that's actionable. It's something you can do now. Plus, especially with the draft class of quarterbacks that this year. And you can add in a fourth, right? I mean, we were all talking about Burrow and Herbert and Tua, but I mean, you can add in Hurts now as a legitimate contender into the quad quarterbacks. So, I mean, it's a lot of fun, a lot of interesting stuff going on in the hobby.
Oh yeah, good time to be in it.
We want to thank you for coming on, guys.
I want to show Ryan something. Look, I told him what I was going to do. Yeah, look, Ryan. By the time we're done, it's all gone. It's a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper for the LukaNation audience. I told Ryan to finish it. He didn't believe me, but
this is the worst though. Like, it can't taste as good as the first sip.
Oh, this is the best part, man. It's a feeling of completion. I get to finish the bottle. Me, he's drinking a little bottle of water there. So, Ryan, before we let you run, because Andrew's going to sign off, go ahead. Ask away. I have more questions for this guy.
I wanted to close and say today is the first day of season 2 of Card Talk Pod. So if you guys haven't listened, if you haven't subscribed, go and listen to season 2, episode 1. Dropped today. I'm actually looking at my Twitter, and Lou has he's looking forward to hearing your thoughts on his basketball take. I'm kind of curious to hear Lou's thoughts too. So I just wanted to thank you. I wanted to thank you for coming on, sharing your time. You have a full day in front of you. You got to run the store and a ton of other stuff. So I appreciate you making time for this. I really do.
Yeah, well, I have one more. Forget it, Ryan. You could say, tell our audience one area, one card, one sport, one box, one release, one something, one little nugget that you see, because you're in this stuff. I mean, you live and breathe this stuff. You got a store, you're online, you name it. Whether it's a player, whether it's a hockey guy, whether it's anything, whether it's Dragon Ball Z, which I don't know shit about. Something where they can go look, do a little research, and be ahead of the curve on.
Hoops Premium Basketball.
For this year.
Retail.
Hoops Premium Basketball. Why?
So I'll give my secret away because I have quite a bit of it now.
Nice.
I mentioned earlier that there's no more 1920 basketball. It doesn't exist, right? It's done. There's a finite amount out there. And while there's a lot now, anytime like a retail comes out, like you buy it, it's just simple supply and demand. 6 months from now, is there more Hoops Premium retail or less Hoops Premium retail?
Less, because it's been opened.
It's been opened. There's 10,000 people breaking cards every day. The product, like you buy retail, or you buy I bought a case, and I'm going to post this, so I'll give you guys a little inside scoop here. In 9 days, on January 15th, 1 year to the date, I bought a case of Prism basketball on blowout for $59.95 and threw it in my closet. I was like, I'm going to sit on this for 1 year and see what happens. They're $52,000 on blowout right now. They're $52,000 for a hobby case of Prism basketball. Yeah, when you buy wax, you're buying the entire class. You're not betting on just Zion or just Ja or just Kobe White or just Tyler Hero or just, Rui or anybody else. You're betting on everybody. So when Zion and Ja do well, and then you've got guys like Keldon Johnson explode or Talen Horton-Tucker or any of these guys, you're betting on the entire class to do well. With all of the breaking out there, the wax is what everybody's always going to want. There's always somebody out there that will break it. They're big enough breakers. I mean, Flawless is $10,000 a box. They're breaking it. Transcendence, $30,000 a box for baseball. They're breaking it. The cost isn't the issue. There's always somebody out there that would gamble. So to me, the wax is the goal, right? Like the retail, like Hoops Premium, last retail product of the year for 1920. Regular Hoops blasters on blowout are $175 a box. Hoops Premium blasters are $70 right now. A year from now, which one do you think sells for more money?
The premium. And I'm gonna tell you why. Also, I like the premium because it's like an update set. You know how Topps update gets like the cool like changes or the rookies that are in it, and you look at it for baseball. Hoops Premium, people don't realize it has cards in it of people who didn't have cards in other releases. I gave Lou Dort as a pick. He's in Hoops Premium. He's not in anything else. I mean, it's got
silvers, it's got flashes, it's got like the chrome like look to it, and it's a fraction of the cost. I think that the economics portion of it, the supply and the demand, will matter. It's gonna play out, and to me, that's why I think wax is just such a good buy. It's just this isn't like Pokemon per se, where they can re-release it when it gets popular, like they did with like Hidden Fates. This is, there's a finite amount. You have serial numbered cards. You just can't make an infinite amount of it. So I'm just optimistic that eventually people are going to want the 1920 product with Zion in it. I mean, Prism Basketball 1819 with Luka is $750 a blaster on eBay. $750. So again, if you're new, this isn't go buy all the Hoops Premium retail and wait on it for 6 months. I still think flipping it makes more sense. But if you get to the point where you have a little bit of a bankroll, I think it's a safe play. Could be wrong, but
do you see potential for a company starting and creating indices where you could, like an ETF of sorts, where I can invest in all the 2018, 2019 draft class? Is that something that's possible to do? It's an open question for you too, Cage.
I think you will see, how you have funds of Jordan rookies and LeBrons? I think you're going to see funds of the wax. I think you're going to see $1 million funds of 03, 04 Topps Chrome and, 07, 08 Topps Chrome or SP Authentic or, 03, 04 Exquisite or 18, 19 Prism or 18, 19 National Treasures or 17 National Treasures or 17 Prism Football. Like, I think those funds are coming because they're out there and they're hard to find and they're at a premium. With these high-end cards, with these massive potentials, you're going to see products like that do really, really well.
I think you're going to see a fund, Andrew, if anything, you have the asset to back it, right? You can't do it without the asset, right? So, and I'm going to say volume went high. I'm going to go low. I think that in addition to wax, a high-end wax, you're going to have, whether it's eBay, StarStock, whatever. I think StarStock's already sort of doing it, but I can see layering on, how StarStock has the NBA Emerging 30. If they were to have in-house, like bought them themselves, let's say, right? They were to have 100 Luka base Prism rookie cards, 100 Ja, 100 Zion, blah, blah, blah. And they kept those in-house they owned. But kind of like Collectible or Rally sells proportionate shares, proportionate shares of the cards. They broke up 30 of those cards, so you wind up with 100 times 30, right? So it's it's 30,000 of these cards, right? 3,000 of these cards. They could make a fund of the top 30 basketball Prism rookie cards because they would have the asset. As long as you have the asset and it's an asset back thing, you could trade kind of like a mutual fund of that, and everybody would buy a share like the Dow Jones. You know what I mean? As long as there's an actual asset to it, you know what I mean? Then I think you could do it. Same thing with
hold the asset, right? So they created derivatives in securities so that there doesn't always have to be an asset that's pegged to it. It can be the price of an asset, right?
Correct.
So you don't have to hold the hobby box. You just are tracking the price of the hobby box, and you have a derivative of it.
I think it's more akin to like a gold ETF, right? So gold ETFs are traded, but somewhere those gold ETFs, they have to have the physical gold backing up that ETF. So it's the same type of thing. What Ryan's talking about is exactly right. I mean, somebody's got to go out there and spend $1 million on high-end wax, and then they sell 100,000 shares at $10 each. And then if that wax is worth $1 million too, those shares are worth $12. You know what I mean? And that wax is always there, right? No one's opening it. It's not being broken. It's just sitting in a warehouse or a vault somewhere, and the cards trade on it. So I think it's definitely the next wave.
It's a cool
100%.
concept. Ryan, thank you so much. We appreciate it, man. Have an amazing
I'll actually let you go this time. I can ask you a million questions, man. I can make this a 4-hour episode. We appreciate you coming on. And anything we could do to help, let us know. But yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah, like I said, I told Andrew, I was really, really looking forward to this. This is probably the one I've been looking forward to out of all of the ones I've been on. This was, I was really, really excited to be on this. So I can't thank you guys enough for having
I hope we
me.
didn't let you down. Did we let you down?
No, this was great. I haven't checked my clock one time on this. So we've been on this for a good bit, and I couldn't be more excited. If I didn't have something to do here in 30 minutes, I'd probably stay on this longer.
God, do your stuff, man. Whatever it is you got to do, we appreciate it. And LukaNation, listen, there's easily 6 or 7 nuggets of fun in there that you got to go back and check out. No matter where you are in the hobby, whether you are a newcomer coming in and looking to build your bankroll, whether you've been in this for a long enough time, Ryan's play for how to flip some stuff, buy bulk, buy you name it, grade some. That's great beginner strategy. You're in this for a little while and you're now flipping your trays and your Lukas. His thought about going out there and buying a Michael Jordan or, basically consolidating your newer assets to something that's more stable, the blue chip we'll talk about, another great strategy. I mean, this episode is great, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for spending some time with us on another episode of the Lukas, Tigers, and Bronze Oh My podcast. Do us a favor and like, subscribe. You know what? Don't just like and subscribe. Everybody does that. If you like us, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, tell everybody. And we hope you got something from spending some time with us today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.